I wish we could get Vic and Roger to make a commercial for the Horror of Babylon.
This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for whatever is in the title of this episode.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that the Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps.
Welcome to episode 128 of The Horror of Babylon, where we review the 1983 adaptation of Cujo. I am Ryan, and with me, as always, is Daniel. Say, woof, woof, Daniel.
I can't do impressions, you know this.
No accents. No accents. But I don't know. Thank you, patrons.
You know who has great accents? Our patrons.
Yeah, they might. I don't know.
Ben's Italian.
Oh, okay, cool.
Spaghetti.
Thank you, Abigail, the first breaker of chains, mother of dragons. Yummy.
Sorry, I'm done.
And Logan,
the Full Metal patron.
And Ben, the fourth patron of hope. And Mia, the fifth, the rainmaker.
She makes it rain, yeah.
And Sierra, the sixth, the Keyblade patron. And thank you to Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You can shop online at horsemen.tcgplayerpro.com. And if you make it in the store, say hello to Ronald III, Grampus of Christmas, who I invited to be on this episode, but he said once he realized that the lead role was played by Wallace and not Denise Crosby, he opted out, so...
Are they not the same person?
No.
Oh.
They look very similar, and they were both like Denise Crosby was the mom in Pet Sematary, and Dee Wallace is the mom in Cujo, and they look kind of similar. So that I understand his confusion. Trigger warning: dogs, dog attacks, adultery can definitely be a rough movie if you are susceptible to these things.
Yeah.
Our history with Cujo, I talked about mine on the book episode. I saw this rented it from the video store as a kid, and it was one of the first Stephen King movies I saw, like one of the first horror movies. This is a very foundational horror movie to me personally.
I had never seen this movie before today.
What?
Or before last night is when I watched it.
That's crazy. I had no idea.
So my experience with this movie is other people making references to this movie, or like other shows. Mm-hmm. The biggest one, of course, being Friends. Have you seen the...
yeah.
You've seen the Friends Cujo episode?
When Beck and Emma went through a watch through of Friends, and when they were watching that episode, they would like call me into the room when it was relevant.
Yeah, so Joey thinks it's the scariest movie ever, to the point where whenever he watches it, he has to put the VHS, because we're this old, into the freezer to hide the movie.
Yeah. I mean, if you're afraid of dogs... I can absolutely see this being the scariest movie ever.
And there's just a couple more Friends references I need to get out of the way.
All right, go ahead.
Yes. Okay, so this is at this really weird time in Friends where they were having Joey Mac on Rachel.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of that, and I was not a fan.
So it's this very weird... So it sticks out in my brain, but not just because he's hiding a VHS in the fridge, but because it's the Joey when he has a crush on Rachel phase of Friends. And there's this part where I'm like, whoever wrote this episode has not actually seen the movie. Mm-hmm. And the reason is they have Rachel say this line while they're watching Cujo. What's wrong with this dog? Bitch, it happens right at the beginning of the movie. Yes,
It has rabies. Yeah.
You know exactly what's wrong with this dog. That always stuck out in my brain when I thought about Cujo, because even, like, I knew that about Cujo.
I remember that line, though. I think I actually laughed when she said that.
Because, of course, we all know what's wrong with the dog. It's in the plot.
Yep. It's possessed by the ghost of a dead serial killer. Duh, Rachel.
And then as, like, she says that, she cuddles up against Joey, and he's like, oh, my crush is all up on me. So
The 1 millionth guy to use a horror movie to get physically closer to a girl.
yeah, that's what sticks out. So when I was sitting there watching this movie, I thought about Friends the entire time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, is this what, like, cheating on a movie feels like? Like, you're watching a movie, but you're thinking about a different one.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition. I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
Okay, so background. I'm sorry, are you done with your Friends?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
done. Yeah,
All right, cool.
I'm never bringing it up again.
That's fine. This movie was released on August 12th, 1983, the same year that the film adaptation of Christine was released.
Okay.
Is based on the 1981 novel by Stephen King. It was directed by Louis Teague, who also directed Alligator, The Jewel of the Nile, and another Stephen King adaptation, Cat's Eye.
I also like Alligator.
I haven't seen it, but I looked at the poster today, and it looked pretty cool.
Yeah. It's like Lake Placid before there was Lake Placid.
Okay, so the screenplay was written by Don Carlos Dunaway and Barbara Turner. Don Carlos Dunaway also wrote one episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
I don't recognize any of this other stuff.
He directed an episode of The Twilight Zone.
He wrote the screenplay for Impulse.
Barbara Turner.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi,
I
Barbara.
like when they have a picture.
Yeah. Well, she wrote a 1973 TV movie called The Affair. So
Good job.
that was practice.
Way to typecast.
Yeah. A lot of TV movies, they both very obviously read the book, which is the most important thing. It had a budget of $6 million, took in $21.2 million.
Not bad.
Yeah, pretty good. Did not go over so well with the critics. Currently, it has a 59% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I was kind of shocked by. It has a 6.1 out of 10 on IMDb, and Metacritic is 57 out of 100. I copied some of the negative reviews. Janet Maslin of the New York Times says, by no means a horror classic, but it's suspenseful and scary.
Excuse me, it was referenced on Friends.
Yeah. I do think it's kind of a classic horror movie. Maybe not like the same way that like
Maybe not-
Halloween is, but
Maybe not when it first came out, but it's definitely in the zeitgeist.
yeah. Variety said, a dull, uneventful entry in the horror genre, a film virtually devoid of surprises or any original suspense.
Okay, I think that this is a person who just knew words.
It just wanted to be mean.
Yeah, I get that feeling from a lot of professional critics.
Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune,
Oh, this guy always has great takes.
he gave it 1 out of 4 stars, calling it one of the dumbest, flimsiest excuses for a movie I have ever seen. You're a jerk. Roger Ebert gave it a 1-word review, dreadful, which actually I think that is... It depends on how you're using dreadful.
Yeah, it's a dreadful movie.
Is it full of dread? Yes. Is it dreadful to watch? It kind of, yeah. I'm
not in love with this movie, but I'm like, guys, come on.
Linda Gross of the LA Times wrote, no theater is air-conditioned enough to justify watching this scary, gory, and beastly movie.
Okay.
A second adaptation was announced in 2015, CUJO, Canine Unit Joint Operations. Nothing ever happened with it, and I think we dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
I would be interested in a remake or a second adaptation, but I
just don't know. I don't mind when they do remakes or adaptations, but I always feel like if you're going to, you need to be able to add something. Mm-hmm. And the only thing I can see a movie these days adding now is a big, dumb-looking CGI dog.
Yeah, and I'll mention this now. I have this down here. Cujo was played by 4 St. Bernards, several mechanical dogs, a black Labrador Great Dane mix in a St. Bernard costume, and stuntman Gary Morgan wearing a large dog costume.
That large dog costume is terrifying. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, furries, you need to step up your game.
And that's that. Another story in the classic, infallible 3-act structure. Good enough for Aristotle, good enough for The Simpsons.
Mr. Sislak, I have a feeling there's going to be one more act to this story.
Well, I'm not hanging around for that. 4 acts.
Is this a good adaptation of the novel? Or structure and themes, is this a good adaptation of the novel?
Yeah.
I think it mostly is.
There's this thing that novels can do that is really hard for movies to do, and that's like internal dialogue.
And it's mostly like Donna and Vic's feelings.
And that's where you get most of the characterization in the book.
You still...
So it almost feels like a... This sounds way more harsh than I'm intending it, but it's the only words that are coming to mind. It feels like a gutted version of the novel.
Yes. This is definitely more about a big scary dog.
Yeah.
Obviously, the adultery and the relationship is in there, but it doesn't like explain the relationship to the point where that the novel does, where things make sense and you kind of see where everything went wrong. But it also, I think it does a good job at least showing that Donna is not happy with what she's doing. The scene where she's in bed with Kemp and she gets up and she goes and looks at herself in the mirror. I think Dee Wallace is such a good actress. You just can see the self-loathing all over her face. And it's not the same as in the novel where you get like this big explanation of their relationship history, which probably would have been cumbersome to put in the movie. But it still gives you a sense that she's a real person. She doesn't like what she's doing, and she knows it's wrong.
Yeah.
And she probably has reasons. It doesn't explain what those reasons are, but... So, and then obviously, it just has to trim down on other stuff like the Cambers and like the whole Joe and Charity relationship. Like, all of that's gone.
Yeah.
And Joe Camber's... It never even mentions his abuse. Like, but you still... Like, the way that the guy plays him...
He plays him how I would picture this guy being.
Yeah.
You just don't get enough of it, I guess.
But at the same time, I also really appreciate the 93-minute runtime on this movie.
Yeah, it was super easy to get through.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Let's go to characters. Dee Wallace, who you probably know better as the mom from E.T. What did you think?
I mean, she played her super well.
Yeah, I think she's a very good actress. Most
of my feelings about her from the book transfer to this, only it's like, in this I don't even get the excuses.
Mm-hmm.
like I really railed against the excuses, but now I don't even get them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, like, even if you don't like what you're being given as an excuse, you still want to hear an excuse.
Yeah, like
you want an explanation.
I want to be mad.
Yeah.
And now I'm just mad for no reason.
Yeah.
So...
The adultery is so much more important in the book, and it is important in this movie, but it's not the focus. It's just there to add more conflict and make everything more dramatic.
Yeah.
Which it does.
I would say when you're reading the book is about adultery. It's about relationships. That's what the book's about.
It's about a marriage and communication and two people living together. And,
the movie's about a big scary dog.
Right. Very much.
That's the difference.
Very much in the same way where the Pet Sematary novel is about death and how we handle death and relate to death.
Reconciliation with it.
Yeah.
Acceptance.
And then the
stages.
movie is about a haunted pet cemetery.
I think that the Pet Sematary movie does the book's themes slightly better than this one does the book's themes.
Yeah.
But
overall, though, I still think this is a pretty strong adaptation.
Yeah, I mean, like, it hits all the points.
Yeah.
You could almost... If it wasn't for the ending, you could... If you were, like, a lazy kid and you wanted to do a book report...
Yeah, you could watch the movie.
Yeah.
But then you say that the kid lives at the end and your teacher knows you watch the movie instead. Yeah.
I think that it might be like a teacher conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
It's like they make like deals with Hollywood writers going, okay, but you got to change just the ending. Yeah.
Or they only assign books that where the movies have different endings than the books.
Or have just different enough parts.
Yeah.
If I was a teacher, that's what I would do. I would do that as a joke. That'd
be funny. Vic, played by Daniel Hugh Kelly.
also does a pretty good job.
Really quick, aside from that stupid perm, he's a pretty good looking man.
Yeah. And the perm kind of goes with the time.
Yeah, it's the 80s. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
There's an episode of Bluey about mullets, which is real funny. Ben is like, it was so super cool in the 80s.
It's not the 80s anymore, Ben.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Every conversation I've had with a woman ever.
There's an episode that's a giant flashback to the 80s where Bandit is telling Bingo and Bluey a story about him and his brothers from the 80s, and they're camping, and he's like, and then we left Nana and Pop Pop at the campsite, and we went down to the wash house, and Bluey's like, with you went without your parents somewhere? And he's like, it was the 80s.
Yeah, no one got molested then. That was fucked up.
Okay. Yes, he also did a very good job. I think it's a pretty good adaptation of Vic, but there are a couple like added scenes that I think wrench up the tension a little bit. The part where he's driving the Jag and he drives past Donna and Steve having an altercation in the road, and by the time he turns around, they're gone.
I think that's partially because of the different mediums.
Yeah.
Like in a book, you could have him say this stuff as exposition, but it doesn't. Exposition never comes across as good as like seeing something in a movie.
Right.
But in the book, it's like, well, we haven't been having sex, and she's been kind of and these are like the things that start getting under your skin when you're in a relationship, and where suspicions start or where like insecurities start.
Yep.
And that's a little bit harder to They do have one decent scene of that in this movie where he kind of makes a move and she just turns off a lamp. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, you know what? Because you know what's going on as the audience.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you're like, I think every dude's been there at least once where you're like, hey, oh, fuck, okay. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's insensitive to assume that, oh, she doesn't want to have sex with me because she's getting it somewhere else. But in this situation, it happens to be correct.
Yeah. I think it gets worse the longer it goes on.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you haven't had sex in a year, then, well, maybe you should have a conversation. Regardless if adultery is a thing or not, you should probably have a conversation. But,
yeah, like,
1 or 2 times, like, nobody's obligated to have sex with you. Maybe she doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
Danny Pintaro plays Tad Trenton. I don't know where
this kid knows how to cry.
Yeah, they keep pulling out these good child actors for some of these Stephen King movies. Like, where do they find these kids?
I don't know, but they hogged him for the Stephen King movies.
The first scene he's in where he's trying to turn out the light and get in bed, like, that is just the most fucking adorable thing. Super pulls on your heartstrings. And yeah, when he's in the car screaming, the number of scenes in movies that stress me out more than that scene, there's probably less than 5. Like, just the way that he's, like, screaming and she can do absolutely nothing about it, and she's also getting mad because she's also scared. It's horrible to watch.
At least she didn't throw him to the dog.
Henry Bowers, have you read it? He's a bad kid.
Yeah, you just don't know yet, Don.
Hiya! Happy Easter!
Christopher Stone plays Steve Kemp.
I think this is one of the times where, with like some exceptions, I actually think this is a better version. Like, this is closer to what I wanted the character to be. Mm-hmm. He's pushy without being, pushy can be rapey. Like, you don't get to decide what's rapey. But it not, like, blatantly saying, what if I just took it? Like, he's...
Well, except for the scene with the milk, where he literally, like, puts his hand up her skirt and pulls her skirt up, and he's putting her up on the...
Even that's not nearly as bad as in the book, is what I'm saying. It's more like he thinks that if he just makes the same moves that he used to make, that he'll get what he wants.
I guess the difference in the book, it seems like it's premeditated.
Yeah.
And in the movie, it's like he goes to confront her and it kind of ends up happening. Not that...
He's having emotional reactions. This is more of what I was expecting.
It's a little more grounded in reality, I guess. He's less cartoony.
Like, instead of like... And that he still does the thing where he destroys the house.
But it's not... Like, he rips up a bunch of stuff, and the book is super descriptive. I'm going to get every bottle of liquor and throw it like it's a bomb.
Yeah.
And it's it describes like everything he does, where in this it's just like he trashed the house.
Him going out, like him saying, okay, you don't want to see me anymore, and then chasing her out because he's like, oh, that's not what I... In this, it seems more like...
Trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, like maybe he even actually liked her.
Yeah. And then he's like, okay, he's like, all right, if that's what you want, and then he lets her go.
And he's like...
Then he loses a fight with himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that tiny bit more grounded.
Yeah.
That makes it feel it makes it feel a little bit worse because now he's kind of human.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything you said. And I also think he is a little better in the movie than he is in the book, but or at least at the very least he fits this medium better.
I don't get to hear him talk about the bourgeoisie though, so
yeah.
I don't get to hate on communists for another episode.
The Cambers are very minimized.
Yeah.
Which I miss their story, but I also think
this movie would have been 2.5 hours long with it.
It's probably better this way.
Yeah.
Obviously, like Vic and Donna, their story is the more important of the two. And really, like, in terms of plot, the Cambers are only important in terms of, like, having the garage and having the dog.
Yeah.
Which is essentially what they accomplish in this movie. But still, Joe Camber still makes an impression with the little bit of amount of time that he's on screen.
So does his friend.
Yeah, Gary Purvier.
Yeah. I'm like, these guys, that the roles were like greatly reduced from the novel. But I'm like, they still sold it.
One of my favorite scenes in this movie is when Gary gets attacked and Cujo jumps on him and he gets him off him, and then Gary gets down on all fours and just gets in Cujo's face and, come on, I don't fucking care. And then he realized, oh wait, shit, I do care, and he tails it out of there. And I also think when Joe gets attacked is also a very good scene.
Yeah.
Cujo himself.
Like I said before, we don't get a lot of movies like this anymore with actual animals being used.
Right.
Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. One of the reasons I wouldn't want a remake of this movie is because I know I would get a distracting CGI dog for at least 10 scenes. Where this, they had trained dog, just have it run up on the car. St. Bernards are scary enough.
Yeah.
They're giant freaking dogs. You cover them in some muck, you have them like pounce it. That's because you can picture that.
I do wonder about, and I didn't look very hard, but I tried to look a little bit on like the treatment of the dogs in this movie, because they do cover these dogs in a lot of crap. And I'm sure it wasn't...
As long as it wasn't toxic, that's all I care about.
Yeah, I don't know. I think another reason why we've started leaning in towards CG animals is because as time has gone on, we have more laws and rules about how we have to treat animals in movies, which is good, but also it wouldn't allow us to make movies like this anymore.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to talk specifics because I couldn't really find anything about how the dogs were treated, but just like the way, like when you see them like covered in like fake blood and stuff, I'm just, how does the dog feel about that?
Just give them extra treats after.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, you just pay them.
Yep.
I don't know. And the only way I know how to pay a dog is to give them more food.
Yep. And bitches.
Yeah.
Literal bitches.
Yeah, find them some bitches.
Some of these may have been bitches. So
Yeah,
they need.
It's not like we got a close look.
How do you? You do see the testicles on one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's a male dog? Like a female dog is a bitch. What's a male dog?
Let's look it up.
What do you call a male dog?
According to Dogster, it may come as a surprise, but male dogs are simply called dogs. Today, there is no sex-specific name for male dogs like there is for females.
All right.
I guess it used to just be dogs and bitches.
Well, we can say it's DAWG, dogs.
Yeah, dogs.
Dogs and bitches. Oh, that's not okay. All right.
That's great.
I'll kill you all! I'll drive you crazy, and I'll kill you all! I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
Scary shit. Is this movie scary?
It probably would have been scarier if I had not read the book first. I think it still does a pretty good job of conveying how terrifying it would be to be attacked by a St. Bernard.
I think it's scary but I don't think it's very scary in comparison to the book.
Yeah.
I do think it causes me a lot of anxiety, specifically with just how distraught and desperate Dee Wallace is in her performance, but even more so, like, the screaming that Tad does. And
you know what I think? I think they didn't tell them it was a movie about a giant dog, and then
they just trapped them.
They just parked them out and left a dog and cameras to attack for days.
Dee Wallace's agent calls her, and he's like, "Hey, have you read that Stephen King book, Cujo?" "No, why? Don't read it."
Just read this many pages of the script. Do you have anywhere to talk about the ending on here?
We can do it now.
Okay, so how do you feel about the change of the ending?
Yes, it feels very Hollywood. However, I think it's better for a movie. I think if Tad died at the end of this movie, I think it may have just been way too dour. Because with the movie, you have a wider distribution for the audience than the novel.
Yeah.
And you also have, like, some amount of, like, kids and adolescents seeing it. And
yeah, I get that.
And I'm not saying that, like, obviously not every horror movie has to have a happy ending.
You could always be like The Mist and make it worse.
Oh my god. But Mist is a good example because at least the story exists with both endings, and you can go with whichever one you prefer.
Yeah.
Like, if you appreciate the book, but you just can't get over the fact that Tad dies, you can watch the movie.
Yeah.
Or if you read the Mist novella and you're like, this is pretty sweet, but I think the ending should be more intense, you can just watch the movie.
Yeah.
So I think they both work with each medium.
I think what bothers me more than even the kid, it doesn't bother me that the kid lives, but what makes it feel even more Hollywood is, like, she kills Cujo. And then, because it's a slasher, you get one last jump scare and the big gunshot.
That is my Koontz.
That's also my Koontz.
I hate it.
I think that having Tad live without that scene would have elevated this movie by a couple of points for me.
Yeah.
Cujo isn't a slasher villain.
Mm-hmm.
He's a tragic dog character.
But they treat him like he's Jason.
Yeah, and he comes back for the last jump scare, so you have to take him out one more time because the killer isn't dead the first time.
Yeah, I hate it.
I think that is a product of the time when this movie was made.
I also think that just her confronting Cujo with the baseball bat is way scarier and more epic, more dramatic than the stupid gun.
And if you really wanted to use the gun, I say just use it when the dog's already dead.
Yeah.
And, like, she just can't control it and she has to keep shooting it.
Yeah.
I think that even would have been better. That would have been fine.
I mean, and she does a version of that in the book with the baseball bat.
Yeah, where she just keeps whacking it and can't stop when she's in blind rage. Yeah. So we have the same guns.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so effects, I actually am pretty impressed overall.
I'd rate this like 9 out of 10 on effects.
And you would think, like, if you hadn't watched it and you hear, like, oh yeah, there's a guy in a dog suit, it's like, oh god, this is gonna be so bad. But no, like, they do a really good job.
It knew the limitations of what it could do. Like, we can't show, like, a dude's testicles being ripped off or the guts going everywhere.
Yeah.
So you do these camera angles where you still show the intensity of the attack without the gore of it.
Yeah, like when he attacks Gary and he has him pinned up against the wall, and it just shows it from the back with just Cujo literally standing over top of him, and he's just, like, engulfed in dog.
Yeah.
And it's just like, ugh. Like, what do you do? What do you do at that point?
Die.
Yeah.
Oh my god, are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
Okay, so let's go to King's, just King's, because we already know our Koontz. What is your King?
The dogs.
Yeah.
Everything about how this is used in the movie, I think, is as close to perfect for what this movie is as you can get.
And I'm just going to say the performances, and that includes the dogs, Dee Wallace, the guy who played Vic, the kid who played Tad, just like,
yeah.
And also the guy who played Joe and Gary, like, they both did.
I even like the Sharp Cereal Professor.
Yeah, I do like the Sharp Cereal.
In my brain, I imagined it like a little less cartoony than that.
Yeah. Well, actually, I imagined it more cartoon. I imagined him with, like, a white lab coat. I have done rigorous scientific experiments on this cereal.
In my brain, I pictured it as like this super straight commercial where it's like, Oh, you don't even know it's a cereal commercial until the very end.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong here.
I wish we could get Vic and Roger to make a commercial for the Horror of Babylon.
We'll just have to go through one of the doorways and find them.
Yeah. We could do that. Well, let's read Rattlesnakes first, so we know what we're getting into.
Oh, we just have to go to a certain point in time. We'll go before the Cujo incident.
What did you think of them making Roger into a total dick in this movie?
It was fine.
Yeah. I guess it's just easier because they kind of have like a complicated relation. And not complicated, but they have a good, like a meaningful, like they're like brothers in the book. And then it's just so easy to make Roger a dick and have that, you can't walk out on the account, watch me.
If you're gutting plot lines, that's an easy way to do it.
All right, let's go to rankings. I went first on the last one, so I'll let you go first on this one.
It's definitely no Freaky.
No.
I don't like it as much as The Mist, Dog Soldiers, Ringu. Got the right one in. Prefer Reanimator. Do I prefer Prey? I think I'm going to put it above Prey.
It's your new number 23.
Because Prey uses a CGI bear.
In Prey's defense, I don't think they would have used a real bear in 1980 if it was made in maybe for long shots.
I have this idea for a like my own Cujo book, but it's about a bear, but it's a bear with mange.
Mine's gonna be probably similar-ish.
We've watched so many movies.
I'm gonna put it number 23, right above Prey as well, and below Prometheus.
Okay.
I think it's one of the better movies we've watched. I think what hurts is watching it right after reading the book, because the book is just so much better.
Yeah.
I think I'll watch this movie again for sure. But next time I watch it, I hope I haven't read the book recently. That'll probably help. Assuming
Rattlesnakes is good, I shouldn't make assumptions. But I think they should do an adaptation of it and get the original actor.
Yeah?
Yeah, and just make it.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
If Stephen King is going to flop, short stories is generally like the area where he's going to flop.
All that you love
will be carried away. Oh my god. Homework: pitch Cujo as a ride in a Stephen King themed theme park.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so of course it's going to be like on a rails thing where you get in a car and you're like put. So what happens if you're a family, right? They separate you and your partner, and they just stick you in a really hot car with the kid. Like they purposely crank up the heat in this on the rails car. And at first nothing happens as you're going along, and then all of a sudden on the screen, you get images of somebody fucking your partner until you're driven mad, and then jump scares.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Mine's gonna be one of those like log water rides.
Okay.
So a picture at the top, a giant Saint Bernard mouth. You get in like the boat, and you go up and you come out the mouth, and the slope is its tongue, and all the water's pouring out of his mouth because it's Saint Bernard drool. Saint Bernard drool. And then you go down and splash, and you're covered in Saint Bernard drool.
I like yours better.
Yeah, yours is good too.
I went as dark as possible.
Yeah, mine's just gross.
You could dye the water red.
Yeah, could do that.
For all the blood.
For further reading, I do think the Pet Sematary movie.
A lot of 80s horror movies.
Yeah.
It has a kind of that vibe.
And animal attack movies like Jaws, Lake Placid.
Castle Rock.
Yeah.
Alligator.
Same director.
Yeah, you should watch Alligator. I think you'd like Alligator.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a thing on it. Or something.
Yeah.
Okay. So, upcoming on the Horror Babylon this Sunday... Is it that soon? This Sunday, we're reading The Wind Through the Keyhole by Stephen King, which is our next entry in the Dark Tower series. Puts us over the hill in the second half of the Dark Tower, which I'm excited to say we're in the second half. And then the next Sunday, we are reading Rattlesnakes by Stephen King. And then our next two bonus episodes on May 30th, we are watching Freaky with Catherine Newton and Vince Vaughn. And then June 6th, we're watching a movie that has been on my list to watch for like 20 years, and I've just never gotten around to it. Four Horsemen has asked us to watch and review An American Werewolf in London. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I assume.
Yeah, no,
it's kind of a classic werewolf movie.
It's in my top 3.
Off the top of my head, like, what are probably like the 3 or 5 like most, maybe not most popular, but like best known werewolf? The Wolfman, the first Howling movie, American Werewolf in London. Okay.
Probably followed by, and then right after that would be Silver Bullet Dog Soldiers. Well, speaking of amusement park rides,
it's been a ride from the support we get from our patrons, including Abigail, the First Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron, and Ben, the Fourth Patron of Hope, and Mia, the Fifth, the Rainmaker.
She makes it rain, yeah.
Oh, she makes it rain. And Sierra, the Sixth, the Keyblade Patron. And thank you to Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You can shop online at fourhorsemen.tcgplayerpro.com. And if you make it in the store, say hello to the proprietor on the third campus of Christmas. I forgot. I was going to take a Benadryl at the beginning of this episode and say, Daniel, we have to race the Benadryl to review Cujo.
Oh, that would have been funny.
I'll do that another night.
We'll do it this week.
Yeah, maybe. Not for rattlesnakes, but maybe for American Werewolf in London. I'll do that.
That movie is like a Benadryl nightmare.
Okay.
You'll see what I mean.
Well, thank you for watching Cujo. I can't believe you had never seen it before. It's such a cult classic horror movie. But I mean, you can't watch every movie. Like, I've never seen The Godfather. I've never seen Rocky.
Yeah.
You can't watch every movie.
I was too busy watching Bram Stoker's Dracula for the 10th time.
Thank you for watching it and recording.
I'm going to go stick it in the freezer and go mac on a close friend that just moved in and I'm confusing emotions over.
That's a little creepy, Joey. You feel what you feel. The heart wants what it wants. What's wrong with that dog?
Okay.
I remember them pulling me in for another one. Rachel was reading a Stephen King book. Was it The Shining?
Yeah.
I just remember... I don't remember that one as well. I remember she was actually walking around the apartment reading it while she was doing stuff, which I thought was interesting because I've never tried doing that.
I can't.
Yeah.
I get dizzy.
Well, thank you to our patrons. Stay tuned for our socials and stay scary.
Stay scary.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the horrorofbabylonpodcast@gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/thehorrorofbabylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and all other major podcast apps. Stay scary.